Knicks didn't do too hot after your prediction.
The Knicks did not do too well. Wait till next year, like we used to say for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Okay. Oops. But how about the New York Yankees? Until last night, there were 7 in a row.
It's May. It's May.
It is May. 7 in a row. They had the best record in baseball except for who? The Philadelphia Phillies. Where's, what's his name? PK. He's a Phillies fan, I guess. Okay. All right. Thank you for coming. Senators Murphy and Cortez Masto, our great senators, have joined us. So this week, we are again attempting to fix something our Republican colleagues have long called an emergency and a crisis, our southern border. For years, Republicans have insisted that the only long-term solution to fixing the southern border was for Congress to pass legislation. We Democrats agree with them. That's why this morning I filed cloture on the motion to proceed to the Bipartisan Border Act, the very same bipartisan bill negotiated months ago by Senators Murphy, Sinema, and Langford. It's the same bipartisan bill that was supported by the National Border Patrol Council, a very conservative group that usually leans Trump. The same bipartisan bill endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce, and even by the very conservative Wall Street Journal editorial page. The same partisan bill that Donald Trump killed, saying, please, blame it on me, please. So blame it on him. Make sure you do. He said so. You're just following his wish. I know you don't have to follow his wishes. That's okay. So we will try to do something, again, our Republican colleagues have long claimed to have desperately wanted, securing our southern border. This Thursday, the Senate will vote on the bipartisan border bill. All those who say we need to act on the border will get a chance to show this week that they're serious about fixing the problem. They'll get a chance to show whether they're just talking points to them or whether they want to improve the status quo. Unlike H.R. 2, and this is a huge and vital distinction, the border bill was written explicitly to win support from both parties, with input from both sides. When H.R. 2 came up in this House, in this Senate, the first time it got no votes at all. And there was no Democratic input, unlike our bill, which had tons of Republican and Democratic input, not only from the 3 negotiators, but from many others. And let's not forget, when this bill was being negotiated, Leader McConnell was also supportive of the effort. He insisted this has to happen as part of the supplemental right before we released our bill. He said, I think this is the ideal time to do it. This is a unique opportunity where divided government has given us an opportunity to get an outcome. As I said, H.R. 2 was not a serious bill, but what we're voting on this week is. It's the same bipartisan bill both sides negotiated for months this winter. Senator Murphy's here, and received bipartisan endorsements across the country. By any objective measure, it's strong, tough, and realistic. This is the same bipartisan border bill Republicans pushed for, then backed away when they got orders from President Trump, made an about-face, turn, and then voted no. If our bipartisan border bill was good enough to win support of the union that represents Border Patrol agents, why isn't it good enough for Senate Republicans? Our Senate Republicans say they know better than our agents patrolling the border. The question is, do Republicans want to improve the situation on the border or not? Maybe they're happy with the way things are. They're happy with chaos. They're happy with trafficking and smuggling. They're happy with fentanyl and the deadly flow of drugs coming through our ports. They're happy with the misery. I hope not. I sincerely hope our colleagues are ready to join us. Of course, we don't expect every Democrat or every Republican to come out in favor of this bill. It's bipartisan. By definition, it's a compromise. That's why the only way to pass this bill is with broad bipartisan support. If you go by what Republicans said over the last few months, you'd think they'd leap at an opportunity like we have right now. In the words of one of my colleagues from Texas, it makes no sense to me for us to do nothing when we might be able to do things better. And the words from a colleague from South Carolina, to those who think that if President Trump wins, we can get a better border deal, you won't. And he added, this moment will pass, Do not let it pass. I wholeheartedly agree. Let's not let the moment pass. Border legislation is just about the hardest thing Congress ever wrestles with. Bipartisan border bills are rare in the Congress. That's precisely what we have in front of us this week. I urge everyone not to let politics get in the way. And Senator Masto has to go to another event, so I'm going to call on her next. Cortez Masto.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I thank you to my colleagues and to my colleague, Chris Murphy. Thank you so much for all of the work that you have done, along with Senator Sinema and Langford on this bipartisan bill. And yes, I want to thank Leader Schumer for bringing us together again to talk about this important issue, which is how do we ensure we're passing legislation to address the very needs that I heard when I was down on the border. I was at the Tucson sector. I was talking to the Border Patrol. I was talking to the customs agents. They are understaffed and overwhelmed. And my commitment to them was we will work here in Washington to bring you the resources that we need. This bipartisan legislation does just that. It would help us fund new technology to crack down on drug and human trafficking, and it would save lives by stopping the deadly flow of fentanyl and other dangerous drugs into our communities. It also updates our old asylum system that takes far too long to process cases. Everyone agrees our asylum system is broken. Let's fix it. And this bill would create 250,000 new visas to help reunite families and encourage people to go through the immigration process legally. Let me just say this. This is an issue, you don't have to be a border state to realize this is affecting so many people across this country. It is important in Nevada. It's important across the country that we give our law enforcement on the border the tools that they need. That's what this is about. I sit and listen to my colleagues on the floor of the Senate, and the Republicans talk about wanting border security. They talk about wanting to pass policy to address it. This is that legislation. This bipartisan legislation fixes that. Our Republican colleagues are thinking about the people they serve back home. Are they really? No. They're not thinking about them. They're not thinking about the safety of American families. They're not thinking about the law enforcement officers at the border that I met with. They're only thinking about one person right now, and unfortunately that's Donald Trump. Enough is enough. It is clear who the real party of law and order is. And right now, unfortunately, it is not the Republican Party.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. So why are we bringing this bill up a second time? The answer is simple. Democrats care about border security. We care about immigration reform. We are not willing to walk away from a bipartisan bill that we worked for 4 months to achieve that lines up with the broad priorities of the American public. Maybe it would have been easier to accept Republicans' political decision to side with Trump and move on. But Democrats believe that we have an opportunity to continue to bring this case to the American public, to try to change minds in the Republican caucus, so that we can finally come together, Republicans and Democrats, and do something about border security. Listen, this bill would be effective. It would be effective. And it lines up with where the broad middle of America is. People in this country are proud of our history of immigration. They want America to be a place where people can come to find a better life, to reunite with their family, to flee violence or persecution or torture. But they want our immigration system to be done in an orderly way. And at the end of last year, when 10,000 people were showing up every day at our southern border, that was not orderly. That put a strain on our law enforcement. It put a strain on our cities. And people in this country knew that we needed to make changes to how we bring people into this country at the southwest border, and that's exactly what we did. Our bill doesn't stop the ability of people to come to the United States. It just puts in place a more orderly system where you will never again have 10,000 people showing up on an individual day, because it allows the president to shut down asylum claims when they overwhelm our resources. Never again will someone wait for 10 years to have their asylum claim processed, because we put in a new system with additional resources so that people's asylum claims will be taken care of in months, not in years. This bill, if it passes, would be effective in bringing order to the southwest border. And that is the reason that Republicans killed it earlier this year. Because Donald Trump said, plain and simple, I don't want you to do anything. Mitch McConnell admitted it at a press conference. Senator McConnell stood up and said, the President of the United States told us to do, the former President of the United States told us to do nothing. The question that we believe is so important, that we want to have another debate in the Senate, is this. Do you care more about the security of your country, or do you care more about the political prospects of your party and your presidential candidate? I think this problem is so big, I think this solution is so important that it's worth putting that question to Republicans and to the country again. And I thank Senator Schumer for giving us the chance to have this debate this week.
Okay, we're ready for your questions. Yes, Mr. Manu.
Do you support the idea of calling Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and having him address a joint meeting of Congress?
Yes, look, I'm discussing that now with the Speaker of the House. And as I've always said, our relationship with Israel is ironclad and transcends any one prime minister or president. Yes.
Is the Democratic position now that the border needs to be taken care of before addressing other things like DACA and path to citizenship,
Look,
visas?
we're ready. We have ready-made legislation that had broad bipartisan support, that Republicans supported until President Trump told them to make a U-turn. It's very important to do, and we're going to try to do everything we can to get it done. Yes.
Separate issue, Farm Bill. Any prospect of getting that done?
Look, the way to get a farm bill done is bipartisan, and we hope that can happen. The House bill is not yet bipartisan. It's going to be very hard to get farm bill done unless we have bipartisan support in both the House and Senate.
Leader Schumer, on IVF, what do Democrats see as wrong with the Cruz proposal? Why won't they
Look,
get
we have a much better proposal, and Republicans ought to support it. The proposal put forward by Senator Duckworth has been thought through and carefully done. Yes.
Do you have concerns about the impartiality of Justice Alito in the wake of that New York Times report?
Look, I think what he did was really the wrong thing to do, and it casts some doubt on impartiality, and I'm discussing with Senator Durbin where we should go from here. Yes.
Do you support the State Department offering condolences to the Iranian president?
I haven't seen what they put out, so I'll have to get back to you. We'd like to, we have a lot of bills we want to get on the floor, but that's one of them in high consideration.
Leader Schumer.
Last one.
Thank you. On the border issue here, are Democrats vulnerable on that politically this fall, and is that one of the reasons you're doing this?
Democrats are doing this because we believe in fixing the border. And we have the only real bipartisan bill negotiated by both sides with a real chance of passing and being put on the president's desk. Everything the Republicans do have no chance of passing. So who's more serious about fixing the border? We are. And I think the public will understand that. Thank you.
Why do you think that the public will